Thank you all. And for the second part of today's briefing, we have with us Jayathma Wickramanayake, who is the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. And I believe this is your first time before the press corps here. So please, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jayathma Wickramanayake. I am the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. I assumed the position as the Envoy on Youth in July 2017. So basically, I've been here for about 6 months now. It's been a very exciting experience for me, coming from a local level youth activism background to now to the United Nations to be the Youth Envoy. My role as the Youth Envoy is to bring the United Nations closer to the young people and bring young people closer to the UN. I have a 5-page long terms of reference, which I'm happy to share with you later. But in terms of the substantive work that I do, a lot of it goes into mainstream youth participation in the 3 pillars of UN's work and in humanitarian action. So it's when we talk about young people, the world currently has the largest youth generation ever. We have about 1.8 billion young people, most of whom live in the developing world. About 60% of this youth population lives in Asia and the Pacific. It's really the best of the times to be a young person, but also the worst of the times. We are the most connected generation ever. We have access to technology and we are connected, we are innovative, creative, but also at the same time, about 600 million young people live in conflict and fragile states. We have 71 million young people as of today who are unemployed. We have about 400 million young people without access to basic health care. So it's really a best of the times and the worst of the times to be a young person. Why I am here today is to talk about the ECOSOC Youth Forum. We plan to bring in all these issues and also the innovative solutions by young people to solve some of these issues into the UN. The ECOSOC Youth Forum, or the Economic and Social Council Youth Forum, is co-organized by the Office of the President of ECOSOC, my office, and the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. This is the 7th Youth Forum that will be happening in the UN. Started in 2012. The Youth Forum started as a side event, but now over the years it has developed into a official gathering of young people and youth ministers here at the UN, and this is the only forum of this kind in the world which brings together young people and youth ministers into the same platform. Across the 2 days of the forum, 30th and 31st of January, young people and youth ministers will be discussing a number of goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, their implementation, review, and the role of young people in these processes. And the outcomes of the forum will feed into the high-level political forum, which will be held later this year. That is pretty much about it. We also have planned a Sdg Media Zone for young people to connect online, share their stories and initiatives with youth and ministers who are present. Thank you.
And I hope this is the first of many briefings with the press. Please, as you ask your questions, introduce yourself to our guest. Do we have any questions? Yeah, yes, please.
Hi, Ibis Frade from Prensa Latina News Agency. I have 2 questions. What specific action can the United Nations promote to give more space to the young people? And do you have any information about the implementation of programs for youth in Latin America? So thank you.
What was the first question?
Could you repeat the first question?
More slowly. What specific action can the United Nations promote to give more space to the young people?
Yes, thank you. In terms of the specific action, I think one of the things that we have to improve is including young people in in the formal negotiations that happen here. There's a lot of youth groups who are interested and want to contribute to those initiatives. We have a lot of youth civil society organizations that contribute to processes here during the General Assembly, the High-Level Political Forum, and other intergovernmental forums. Even the ECOSOC Youth Forum is an informal process, informal event yet. So there is a need to include young people and youth organizations in the formal space and the formal discussions we have at the United Nations. And apart from that, I think there is also a greater need to focus on young people more at the country level, in our UN country teams, in the country missions, focusing on young people where they are instead of kind of trying to bring them to New York. How can we better work with and for young people in the country level is also a space that we have to explore. Some of our country officers have youth advisory panels that they consult in terms of formulating their plans and implementing them. And some country officers have global youth advisors. So there are different initiatives depending on the country, but there is still a need to expand those initiatives. And in particular to Latin America, we work very closely with the country officers there, the ECLAC, and the youth organizations. We also work with OIHOTA very closely. They will also be present in the ECOSOC Youth Forum. So happy to share more details with you on specific programs.
Yes, please.
Yes, Naufan Hari, Moroccan News Agency. Regarding next week's forum, do you have any numbers about how many ministers are there becoming and the countries also? And on another question, you said that one of your missions is to bring youth closer to the UN and the UN closer to the youth around the world. So in terms of practicality, how is that? How are you going to do that? I mean, if you can elaborate. And so far, you've been on the job for 6 months so far. What's the main challenges you had so far? Thank you.
Yes. In terms of the number of ministers, as of this morning, we have 51 delegations confirmed to attend. Out of that, 34 are at the level of ministers, and the rest of are at the level of, in some countries, we don't have youth ministry, so the highest institution responsible for young people. So there'll be about 34 ministers and 51 delegations, and we have 500 young people confirmed to participate at the event. Doing my job has not been very easy in the last 6 months. As you know, in the UN, we speak what the Secretary General calls in an analog language. So one of the things that he told me in our first meeting was to try to translate that language into a digital language and speak in a language that is more youth-friendly and that young people can understand. So my office, working very closely with DPI, is trying to communicate in a way that young people understand. That is one of the major things that we plan to do in terms of bringing the UN closer to young people. I also undertake missions whenever possible. So we go to countries, we go to regions, go to the ground and meet with young people on the ground.
Sure. Matthew Lee, Inner City Press. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the briefing. I wanted to, I guess, to understand what the range of your mandate is. I wanted to ask you, it just comes to mind, in Cameroon, it was mentioned in the first part of the briefing, although not this Anglophone areas, the internet has been turned off, which youth have, you were talking about digital, was turned off for 94 days, and now is still slowed down, and schools have been burned. Some people blame the government, some people blame, I guess, the opposition. But in this kind of a situation where youth are particularly impacted by this this kind of conflict, what can your office do? Do you address those kind of things?
Well, in this particular case, I have to say I haven't made a specific intervention, but if in any situation young people's rights are deprived, then I think it's an issue, and that we, together with the United Nations, all the entities in our country present, we should work towards realizing those rights.
And I guess I remember that I think it was in 2014 there was like a youth conference in Sri Lanka, and I don't know if there's any link to that for you having the post, but can you, if you're willing to, I know that you worked on, I've seen it described, post-conflict reconciliation there. There are some in the UN system that are saying that the country has not actually implemented the the Human Rights Council resolution. Do you have any, I understand, I'm asking you, I guess, as a person that has worked on the issue, where do you think the country stands on that? Is there more work to be done? What's your view of it?
Well, I'm definitely not here to talk about that issue, but I'd like to speak maybe a little bit about my experience working there.
Sure.
So I contributed to the drafting of the national youth policy in the country from 2012 to 14. And in the youth policy, we made sure that we included, as civil society youth groups, we pushed for the inclusion of peace building and reconciliation as a part of the national youth policy. And I co-founded a youth organization called the #Generation. Through that youth organization also, we've sort of lobbied, and we were activists who were lobbying for the multilingualism, for an example, wherever both languages are not respected in the government institutions or places like that. We always made noise about it and pushed for it.
Hi, thank you for this briefing. I want to ask you, what is your office is practically doing to help millions of refugees, IDPs, especially because of the wars in the Middle East, in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and all over. Children is statistically, according to the UN statistic, are one of the main victims of these conflicts, and youth.
No, definitely. My office has been instrumental in the adoption of the Resolution 2250 on youth, peace and security. So since 2015, we've been working towards the implementation of that resolution at a country level. And as I mentioned, whenever I make country visits, I make sure that we also bring that element with us and make sure we work together with the government counterparts and our UN colleagues there to make sure that that resolution is implemented. For an example, when I was in Iraq, we had discussions with the assistance mission there and with the country team, and the SRSG said he will appoint a youth focal point in the mission to make sure that the needs and concerns of young people are especially addressed in that context. So one of the challenges that I have is that I don't have country presence. We are a small office based here in headquarters, and a lot of work that we do is advocacy. But whenever there is an opportunity, we make sure that we make an intervention, a positive intervention.
I'd like to thank our guest again. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
And for all of you, have a very nice weekend.